3 men attacked the Mafia boss. Then a single mom waitress said, "Try me." The rain was not just falling, it was a betrayal. It hammered the tin roofs of the Miami port, turning the asphalt into a black, slick mirror that reflected only the flickering, desperate blue of the Moonwave Diner's neon sign. It was 2 a.m, the hour when the city held its breath, and the diner was a lonely island in a sea of empty, wet streets. Inside, Jessa Quinn was wiping down the chrome counter for the 10th time. The air smelled of stale coffee, bleach, and the ozone tang of the storm. In a booth near the staff lockers, her son, Milo, was finally asleep. He was 8 years old, curled on the cracked vinyl, his small body a testament to the fact that Jessa was doing this all on the graveyard shift. Alone. She moved quietly. Her focus split between the smear on the milkshake machine and the rhythmic, safe breathing from the booth. The bell above the door was broken. It didn't jingle. The 3 men who entered were simply just there, displacing the air. They brought the chill of the Atlantic in with them, shaking water from wool coats that cost more than Jessa's car. They were not the usual kind of trouble. The loud, drunken longshoremen or the desperate street kids. These men were quiet. They moved like corporate lawyers, but their eyes were cold, assessing the empty room with a predator's efficiency. A tiny, angry red dot, no bigger than a freckle, appeared on the wall. It crawled across the stainless steel, climbed the glass carafe of the coffee machine, and settled on the dark, simmering liquid. At the counter, a man in a simple, impossibly white linen shirt looked up from his espresso. He was the only other person in the diner, a man who had been nursing the same small cup for an hour, watching the storm. The dockworkers knew him. They called him the Coral Crown, a name spoken in whispers. Angelo Trevisani. He saw the red dot. He registered the threat, his body tensing, but his expression was one of annoyance, not fear. He was too slow. Jessa was already moving. There was no thought. Only the muscle memory of survival. Before Angelo could even push his stool back, Jessa grabbed the glass pot of scalding, hours-old coffee. She did not throw it. She uncoiled, her arm snapping forward, projecting a searing black wave over the counter. The man with the laser sight screamed, a wet, terrible sound as the liquid hit his face and chest. In the same fluid motion, Jessa's left hand shot out, grabbing the aluminum tray of yesterday's pecan tarts. She flung it side-armed, like a discus. It clattered uselessly against the chest of the second man, but it did its job. It broke his line of sight, the sugary, sticky mess momentarily blinding him. Her hip checked the heavy steel security bar bolted to the doorframe. She rammed the bar into its socket, the heavy clang cutting through the man's scream. It was not a lock, but a barricade. It blocked the only clean shot from the outside. The coffee-burned man was clawing at his face. The tart-covered man was spitting pastry. The third man, the one closest to her, lunged past his colleagues, his hand diving inside his jacket. Jessa did not retreat. She met his lunge. She grabbed the thick canvas string of her own apron, the one she used to hang her order towel. She looped it, fast as a snake, around the man's advancing wrist, pulling him forward, off balance. She used his own weight against him, and as he stumbled toward her, she drove her elbow upward, not at his jaw, at the soft, vulnerable hollow of his throat. He made a gagging, choking sound and folded. As he doubled over, she saw the glint of steel in a sleeve holster. Her fingers, calloused from hot plates, dug under his jacket. She ripped the small automatic free. Her thumb found the magazine release. The clip dropped heavily into her palm. Behind her, the commercial oven was still glowing, set to 300 degrees. She tossed the magazine, not the gun, onto the hot rack. There was no explosion, just a sharp sizzle. The smell of burnt plastic and hot metal filling the air. Angelo Trevisani had already moved, fading back toward the kitchen swing door. His hand was up, signaling to a driver he knew was waiting in the alley. He was calculating his escape. But Jessa saw the second man recover. He grabbed the only other customer, a drunk longshoreman slumped in a booth, and yanked him up, using the man's body as a human shield. Jessa grabbed the red fire extinguisher from its mount. She did not try to aim the nozzle. She slammed the canister hard against the edge of the steel counter, breaking the handle mechanism. A massive, choking cloud of white foam erupted, a sudden blizzard that filled the diner. Stinging her eyes, she heard coughing and swearing. Through the expanding fog, she saw the silhouette of the man holding the hostage. She hefted the heavy, laminated "Today's Specials" board. She swung it low and hard, connecting with the man's shins. She heard a dull crack and a grunt. The hostage fell free. Outside, a container ship blasted its maritime horn, a low, guttural sound that vibrated through the diner floor. The Moonwave's neon sign sputtered, hit by the foam. Blue, black, blue, black. Jessa stood in the center of the room, breathing hard, the foam dissolving around her feet. She pulled the final safety latch on the back emergency door, securing the building. The entire event, from the red dot to the final lock, had taken 22 seconds. The two conscious men were dragging their burned, wheezing companion out the back, having unbarred it. Angelo watched them go. Then he turned back to Jessa. He stood near the kitchen, untouched. He was looking at her through the clearing mist, and his gaze was unsettling. It was not the gratitude of a man whose life had just been saved. It was the sharp, appraising stare of a master craftsman seeing a tool he did not know existed. It was the look of a man fluent in danger, recognizing a dialect he had not expected to hear from a waitress. The longshoreman, now violently sober, was fumbling with his phone. The camera was shaking, but it had caught it all. The clip, blurry, chaotic, and utterly unbelievable, was already uploading. Jessa Quinn, the waitress who faced down the mafia. Angelo walked back to the counter. He straightened the cuffs of his white linen shirt. He reached into his pocket and placed a small, heavy card on the wet surface. It was cream-colored, with a logo of stylized gold coral. "When you have time," he said, his voice a low, smooth gravel, "we should talk about vulnerabilities." He left, melting into the rain as if he were never there. Jessa waited until the silence of the diner felt real again. She checked the locks. She wiped the foam from her face. She walked to the booth and gently, so gently, lifted Milo into her arms. He mumbled in his sleep, burrowing his face into her neck. She hit the switch for the neon sign. The diner plunged into darkness. Jessa held her son, breathing in the smell of his hair, her eyes fixed on the small gold card. She knew that single, violent act of protection had just pulled her back into a world she had fought for a decade to escape. But this time, feeling the steady beat of Milo's heart against her own, she knew she was not going to run. The next morning, the sun did nothing to burn away the chill of the previous night. Jessa was walking Milo to the school bus stop, her body thrumming with a caffeine-fueled exhaustion. When the truck pulled up, it was a black SUV, the kind designed to look generic but which screamed federal authority or high-level crime. The windows were tinted to an illegal, perfect black. It idled at the curb of her tenement building, making no sound. It had no license plates. A man in a suit, not the driver, got out. He was built like a heavyweight boxer, but moved with the quiet deference of a butler. He did not approach her or Milo. He simply stood by the open rear door and waited. Jessa put Milo on the bus, watched it pull away, and then walked back. Her heart was a cold, hard knot in her chest. "Mr. Trevisani requests a moment," the man said. It was not a request. The ride was silent. The leather smelled new. They drove deep into the industrial side of the port, to a warehouse that was supposed to have been condemned. Inside. It was not a warehouse. It was a converted cold storage unit. The air was frigid, smelling faintly of bleach and fish. Angelo Trevisani was sitting at a large, modern steel desk in the middle of the cavernous, refrigerated space. He wore the same kind of immaculate shirt, this time a light blue. He did not ask her who she was. He did not ask her where she was from. He gestured to a chair, and when she remained standing, he steepled his fingers. "You observe," he said. His voice was quiet, but it carried in the cold room. The coffee was old. You knew it was too bitter to sell, but hot enough to scald. The tart tray was aluminum, light enough to throw, but wide enough to block a man's vision. The security bar was heavy. You used your hip, not your back. Who taught you to see the world as a collection of tools? Jessa kept her hands loose at her sides. "You learn fast when you are small," she said. "That was not learning. That was training." She let the silence sit, let the cold numb her face. "I was a teenager," she said, offering a piece of the truth, angled just so. "I ran with a car theft ring. We were good at boosting, not so good at not getting caught." She paused. "I ended up in a group home, forge house, a nun there, Sister Mary. She did not care about saving our souls. She cared about discipline. She taught us how to survive the lives we already had. A nun taught you how to disarm a man and clear a magazine." "A nun," Jessa said, her voice flat, "taught me that you can tell everything about a person by what they do not say. You read the scuffs on their shoes. You see the oil stains under their nails. You listen to the rhythm of their breathing. Last night, those men were breathing too fast. They were sloppy." Angelo nodded slowly, accepting the answer for what it was. "The Coral Crown is not what you think," he said, shifting topics. "It is a network. Restaurants, import channels, everything legitimate." He leaned forward. "But a new group, the Cinder Syndicate, is trying to choke the port. They do not use guns, not at first. They use lawyers, they use injunctions. They harass my workers, delay my shipments, and bleed me by the hour." He continued, "To make matters worse, a new federal agency, the Harbor Light Bureau, is sniffing around. They are pretending to build a case against everyone, trying to get the syndicates to flip on each other, but they are not clean. Some of their top agents are receiving community funding from very shady sources. It is a three-way war, and I am being squeezed." "I am sorry for your trouble," and Jessa said, "but I have a shift at 5. My son has soccer practice." "I am not hiring a killer," Angelo said, his voice hardening, losing its smooth edge. "Those men last night were Cinder. They were sending a message. You sent one back. I am hiring you to patch the leaks. Jessa, I need you to see the vulnerabilities I cannot. I need you to do it before someone else realizes that your son is your vulnerability." The words hung in the air, cold as the room. Jessa's face tightened. "Do not," she whispered, "ever speak his name." "I am not the one you have to worry about, Wainan," he replied. Right on cue. Her phone, an old prepaid model, buzzed in her pocket. It was a number she did not recognize. A text message. It was a picture. Milo, when he was at the school gate just 20 minutes ago, backpack on. He was laughing. The photo was taken from across the street through a long lens. The caption was simple: "Stay out of men's business." The blood drained from Jessa's face. The cold in the room was inside her now. She looked at Angelo, her eyes no longer defensive, but glacial. 72 hours, she said. The words were clipped. "I will give you 3 days. I will assess the security on your delivery routes. That is all." "Done," he said. "That is not all," she snapped. "In return, you will put 2 men, your best, on my son. One in front of the school, one at the back. He's not to be left alone for a second. And you will pay off the old medical debts for my mother. The ones from her hospice care. $5,600. I want the receipt." Angelo did not even blink. "I will agree to that, without negotiation." He stood up. Walking around the desk, he was close enough for her to feel the warmth radiating from him. "But I add one condition. Anyone, Cinder, Harbor Light, anyone, makes a move on Milo, I will not respond with lawyers. I will respond by the law of the sea, and the sea, Jessa, takes everything and never gives it back." She held his gaze, a silent, terrible contract passing between them. She spent the next 2 days at the docks. She did not wear an apron. She wore jeans, work boots, and a ball cap, and she walked the entire perimeter, a ghost in the system. Angelo's security team, big men with suits and earpieces, followed her, looking bored. On the third day, she met Angelo in the same cold room. "You have 11 critical failures," she said, tossing a notebook on his desk. "Your perimeter cameras are fake. They are just empty casings. Your delivery schedules are consistent. They overlap every Tuesday and Thursday at 4 in the morning. Your night shift security lead has a gambling problem. And," she pointed, "you have a hook by the back gate where someone hangs a rain slicker. It is the same color as the guard uniforms. Anyone can put it on, walk through the gate, and look like they belong." Angelo read the notes. A muscle in his jaw twitched. The 72 hours passed. Angelo's trucks, using Jessa's new routes and randomized timing, went out full and came back empty. The Cinder Syndicate did not hit them. The leak was patched. But as Jessa stood on a gantry crane watching the last truck clear the port, she felt it. A prickle on her neck. It was not Cinder. It was not Angelo. She scanned the area, far across the port, in a new glass tower that scraped the sky. She saw a flicker. It was an office. Floors above the chaos of the docks, a man was standing at the window, looking down at the port through binoculars. He was too far away to see, but she knew the building. Kepler Dominion, the clean tech conglomerate that was buying up the shoreline, the one that promised a green future, the one that ran on money so clean it squeaked. And she knew, with the certainty of a woman who reads breathing patterns, that he was looking right at her. The sky turned a bruised, yellowish gray. A Category 2 warning was upgraded. Tropical Depression Lysander was strengthening, and Miami held its breath. Over the city's loudspeakers, a digitized voice warned of storm surges and high winds, repeating on a loop that drove people indoors. The streets emptied, leaving a vacuum. But the real storm, for Jessa, was hitting on paper. 2 letters arrived on the same day. The first was a lawsuit summons, slid under her apartment door. A high-priced law firm, on behalf of the Cinder Syndicate, was suing the Moonwave Diner and John Doe employees for creating a dangerous and hostile environment, citing emotional distress. They were leveraging the clip, twisting it. The second letter was hand-delivered by a court processor, Gabe De Niro, Milo's biological father. A man who had not seen his son in 3 years was suddenly petitioning for emergency temporary custody. The petition was attached to a neatly typed consultation letter from an investigator at the Harbor Light Bureau, citing Jessa's new, unstable association with known criminal elements. The pressure was precise, a 2-pronged attack aimed not at her, but at the 2 things she had: her job and her son. Angelo called. "I have a secure apartment downtown, biometric locks. You and Milo can go there." "No," Jessa said immediately, standing at her window, watching the first bands of rain sweep the streets. "I am not moving into your apartment. It is not an offer, Jessa. It is logistics. It is a cage," she said, "and it makes me a liability you have to protect. I am not going." There was a heavy pause on the line. "Then what is your move?" "My move," she said, "is to finish this, so they have no reason to come after him." He did not argue. The next morning, a woman named Elena arrived. She was tall, with sun-bleached hair and the calm, powerful shoulders of a swimmer. She was, Angelo explained via text, a former Coast Guard rescue swimmer. She was not there to be a bodyguard. She was there to be Milo's nanny, to take him to school, to watch the soccer game, and to be, as she put it, better in the water than anyone who might try to grab him. Jessa watched Elena show Milo how to tie a bowline knot. Milo was fascinated. Jessa felt the knot in her own stomach loosen. Just a fraction. She could work. The work was a new rumor from the docks, a Coral Crown shipping container, logged as carrying industrial wastewater filters, had been diverted. The seal was swapped at sea, a clean, professional job. "It is a reputation attack," Angelo explained in the cold room office. "The Cinder Syndicate is telling the port I cannot even control my own cargo, but the manifest is wrong. My source says that container holds the encryption keys to our carbon offset ledgers." Jessa looked blank. We buy carbon credits to make the restaurants green, Angelo said, his voice tight with anger. It is a scam, but a legal one. If someone proves we are using shell companies to buy fake credits, if they leak that ledger, it delegitimizes my entire public business. It makes me look like a fraud. It is the kind of clean, white-collar crime Kepler Dominion would love to pin on a mafia boss like me. Kepler, Jessa said, the name from the glass tower. They own the port's Green Initiative contract, Angelo said. This smells like them. Jessa hit the pavement. She did not use Angelo's resources. She went back to hers. She found an old lockpicker named Sal, now running a key-cutting kiosk, who still heard things from the marina security teams. She bought 2 burner SIMs from a girl named Static, who lived above a bodega and monitored police scanners. And she paid a driver from an Uber boat service, a man who knew every inlet and sandbar, $200 to trace the transponder log of the ship that had lost the container. She pieced it together in 6 hours. The container was not lost. It was moored at a private dock, hidden among the super yachts, at the Kepler Dominion Marina. We cannot touch him, Angelo said flatly, when she told him. Orion Kepler is not a gangster. He is the city. He funds the new children's wing at the hospital. He plants trees. You move on a man like that, the entire city comes down on you, not just the Harbor Light Bureau. Jessa stood in the rain at a payphone, the wind whipping her hair. The cleanest ones, Angelo, she said, her voice cold and hard over the line, are the only ones who can afford to hide the dirtiest things. He's using your container to frame you, and he is using my son to keep me quiet. What is the plan? Then, Jessa, we go in heavy, we shoot up a marina full of billionaires. No, she said, no guns, no blood. She watched a wind turbine, one of Kepler's projects, spinning uselessly in the pre-storm gusts. We go in we are a maintenance crew. Wind turbine maintenance. There is a flaw in the new IEC safety compliance code for high wind operations. We are here for an unscheduled emergency inspection. We use their own bureaucracy against them. There was a long silence. She could hear him breathing. I have a team, he said finally. They are not soldiers. I do not want soldiers. They are loyal, he said. He gave her 3 men. The first was his executive chef, a man who knew how to use a boning knife but preferred using his thick hands to apply precise, agonizing joint locks. The second was his accountant, a nervous man who could crack any digital safe. The third was his main driver, a man who could pilot a water taxi through a tidal wave. It was a ridiculous, terrible, perfect team. As Jessa was mapping out the marina schematics, her phone buzzed. It was a video call from Elena's phone. She answered, and Milo's face filled the screen. Small and worried, the wind was howling outside his window. Mom, he asked, the wind is loud. Are you coming home to read the book? We are on page 42. Jessa's throat closed. She forced a smile. I will be there, baby. I promise. I am just finishing some work. I will be there. Okay, be safe. He hung up. Jessa stared at the black screen. She felt a presence behind her. Angelo was standing in the doorway of the cold room. He had heard. He did not say a word. He just stood there, and in a simple, profound gesture, he unclipped the expensive watch from his wrist, placed it on the desk, and began, methodically, to roll up the sleeves of his white shirt. The air on the water was thick and sharp with salt. The wind was a scream, cutting across the deck of their rented maintenance boat. Jessa, wearing a stolen Kepler Dominion windbreaker, checked the harnesses. This was it. It was a heist to steal back evidence. But as she looked at Angelo, his face set and grim, his sleeves rolled for a fight, she knew it was also a test of whether two broken, dangerous people could trust each other when the water was rising. The key to walking into a place you do not belong is to look like you are miserable to be there, Jessa, in her ill-fitting windbreaker, led her crew of 3, a chef, an accountant, and a driver, while Angelo played the part of the supervisor. They passed the first security hut, their hastily printed technician cards hanging from lanyards. Jessa's expression was pure, distilled annoyance. She looked at her watch, sighed, and muttered just loud enough for the guard to hear. "If this wind hits 40 knots, I am clocking out." The guard, who wanted to be anywhere but in the path of tropical depression Lysander, just waved them through. Boredom and urgency, Jessa knew, was a combination no one wanted to question. They passed the second checkpoint, a roving patrol by having the accountant, a man named Silvio, drop a case full of harmless diagnostic tools. He flapped his hands, looking terrified of getting his suit wet, and Angelo berated him. The patrol passed them by, not wanting to get involved in an internal squabble. The third checkpoint was the dockmaster's office. Jessa walked right past it. The container was at the end of Pier B. Isolated. "The camera on the main walkway," Jessa said, her voice low against the wind. "It pans. It has a 14-second cycle when it hits the far right before it moves left. We have 14 seconds to get this container moving." "Moving how?" the chef asked, his hands flexing. "We do not lift it. We move its dock," Jessa said. She dropped onto the deck of a small, electric harbor tug tied to the pier. Her past life came back like a reflex. Her hands found the steering column. There was no key. She jammed the accountant's metal file under the housing, ripped the plastic shell off, and exposed the wires. 90 seconds. That was her old record. Tonight, with the wind as her cover. She did it in 60. The electric motor hummed to life. "Get the lines," she hissed. They untied the massive container from its moorings and hitched it to the tug. Jessa nudged the tug's throttle. The boat strained, and the massive, multi-ton container groaned, sliding slowly, silently, into the blind spot just as the camera began its sweep back. "Now, the hard part," Angelo said. Silvio, the accountant, got to work on the high-security lock with a battery-powered grinder. Angelo stood watch, adopting the air of a man deeply annoyed by his subordinates. He adjusted his collar, looking for all the world like a manager. "Silvio," Angelo said, his voice a perfect, critical blend of Cuban-Italian drawl. "Do not let your sweat drip on the stainless steel housing. It leaves salt. It is unprofessional." Silvio, who was trying to bypass a multi-$1,000 lock in a hurricane, just nodded, terrified. "You, chef," Angelo said, "look like you are checking the seals, not planning to fillet someone." A real security guard, not one of the checkpoint time servers, appeared, his face tight. "Hey, you are not on the manifest. What is the IEC standard for this inspection?" Angelo did not miss a beat. He turned and looked at the guard with utter disdain. "We are checking the wind shear tolerance. The certification is IEC 61400-1. Are you telling me your own turbines are not rated because if they are not, this entire pier is out of compliance?" It was complete, confident nonsense. The guard's face went from suspicious to worried. "No, sir, I was not told." "That is the point of an emergency inspection," Angelo said, dismissing him with a wave. "Go get us coffee. Black." The guard, flustered, actually apologized and walked away. The grinder finished. The chef pulled the heavy doors open. It was not chips. It was a full, water-cooled server rack bolted to the container floor, humming with power from an external battery pack. It was the entire emissions ledger. And lying on top of it, a single, embossed card, an invitation to Orion Kepler's Green City 2040 Inches conference. "He left it for us," Jessa whispered. Then the local alarm, a high-pitched, piercing shriek, split the air. "It was a trap," the chef growled. "It was an invitation," Jessa said, "but he expected us to fail the test." She grabbed the server's central unit. "Silvio, unbolt it now." The chef helped, his massive hands ripping the bolts from the floor. They loaded the rack onto a hand pallet and ran. A yacht horn, impossibly loud, blasted from the darkness. A searchlight cut through the rain. "Down," Jessa yelled, pushing the pallet onto their escape boat, a low-slung airboat piloted by Angelo's driver. They scrambled aboard as the first shots, tiny pops in the wind, sounded. "Go, go," Angelo roared. The airboat's massive fan ignited, and they shot out of the marina, plowing through the chop and into the darkness of the Everglades. They were fast, but the thing behind them was faster. A sleek, black drone, a high-powered camera model, was pacing them from above, its red eye unwavering. "It is feeding them our location," Jessa yelled over the engine. "I cannot shake it," the driver yelled back. Angelo grabbed the driver's shoulder. "I have it." He took the controls. Angelo did not just drive the boat, he merged with it. He wove through the mangrove tunnels, using the dense foliage as cover. But the drone stayed high. "Jessa," he shouted, "the flare gun in the box." She found it. "What am I shooting?" "Do not shoot it. Burn the wind," he said. "On my mark. 3, 2, 1. Angelo threw the airboat into a hard, sideways slide, cutting the engine for 1 second. Jessa fired the flare straight up, but not at the drone. She fired it into the wall of wind and rain just behind them. The thermal imaging camera on the drone, designed to track the heat of their engine, was suddenly blinded by a massive, blooming magnesium fireball. The hot air current from the flare created a burn, a false reading, the drone's automated tracking, confused by the sudden, massive heat spike, banked hard, turning back toward the false signal. Angelo slammed the throttle, and they vanished into a limestone cave hidden by a curtain of hanging Spanish moss. The engine died. The only sounds were the storm, the dripping water, and 4 people breathing hard. They were soaked, shivering. Jessa's hands were shaking. Angelo watched her, then took off his own heavy, dry coat and draped it over her shoulders. His hands lingered for a second. His skin was warm. Their eyes met in the darkness. It was not a look of gratitude. It was something more complex, a raw acknowledgement. Then, just as quickly, they both looked away. Jessa's pocket buzzed. She pulled out her phone. The screen's light was painfully bright. A text from Elena. A picture of Milo, asleep, and a short message. "He is waiting. Do not forget page 42. A sound, half laugh, half sob, caught in Jessa's throat. Angelo, standing at the mouth of the cave, watched her face soften. He looked out at the rain, at the dark, churning water, and a thought, one he could not yet name, began to form. The server was safe, but the hive was awake, and Orion Kepler knew her name. They were underground, but the storm found them. Tropical Depression Lysander had fed on the warm coastal water and become a Category 3 hurricane. The wind above them was a living thing, a high-pitched, solid roar that made the concrete walls of the old Coral Crown storm shelter vibrate. A diesel generator in the next room provided the only light, thrumming a low, steady rhythm against the chaos outside. Angelo had brought Milo and Elena here, along with his strange, loyal crew. The shelter was a time capsule of the restaurant above wire racks, massive defunct freezers, and kegs of flat beer. Jessa was not resting. She had the server rack hooked up to a battery array and her own laptop. The encryption was good, but it was corporate, not clandestine. It was designed to keep competitors out, not someone like her. She bypassed the main firewall by pretending to be a diagnostic tool. The data streamed onto her screen, and it was not just a ledger, it was a blueprint for the soul of the city. "It is not about money, Angelo," she said, her voice quiet, awed by the scale of it. "Not just, this is a 5-year plan." She pointed to maps, to demographic overlays. Kepler is using the Green City Initiative to buy coastal land. He triggers environmental audits on properties he wants, then his fund buys them for pennies on the dollar. "He's a developer," Angelo said, standing over her shoulder. "He's a social engineer," Jessa countered, scrolling. "He's pushing out all the low-income residents, the dock workers, the families who have lived here for generations. He's building a clean city, and he is cleaning it of the people. This," she held up a file, "is the ledger, but it is also the marketing plan for how to sell the displacement as progress." Her fingers froze on a new directory. "Seagull Wing Foundation, Kepler's main charity," Angelo said. "He donates millions. He donates targeted bribes," Jessa whispered. The directory was full of wire transfers, small, Regular payments to 2 specific Harbor Light Bureau agents and larger, lump sum legal retainers paid to the law firm now representing Gabe De Niro, the firm handling Milo's custody case. It was all one machine. Kepler was using the city, the feds, and her ex to pin her down. Angelo saw the look on her face, the shift from tactical anger to a cold, personal fear. He looked away, giving her a moment, and stared at a water stain on the wall. He was not born into this, Jessa said, looking at Angelo's profile. Kepler, he was not like you. Angelo turned, his expression unreadable. Like me, you were born to this life, the violence. A humorless sound, not quite a laugh, escaped him. No, I was born to be a fisherman. I am here because of a lie. He sat on an upturned crate, the generator light casting hard shadows on his face. I had an older brother, Marco. He was the smart one, the one who was supposed to get us out. He got a job as a crane operator. Good money, safe. Angelo picked at a loose thread on his cuff. One day, the crane collapsed. He fell 9 stories. The company, the Port Authority. They blamed him. Worker error. They said the safety reports were clean, but Marco was meticulous. He never cut a corner. I started asking questions. I pulled the maintenance logs, and I found it. A signature. The safety inspector who signed off on that crane, the one with the faulty hydraulics, was paid for the inspection by a shell company. A shell company that bought the scrap from the crane and sold it back to the port. Who? Jessa asked. It does not matter what their name was then, Angelo said. What matters is that I learned that a lie on paper can kill just as fast as a bullet. I took Marco's insurance money, and I bought my first boat. I went into the sea business to make sure I was the only one who ever signed my own papers again. I am not in the violence business, Jessa. I am in the truth business. My truth. Jessa looked at the screen, at Kepler's meticulous lies, and then at Angelo. She understood. Her soft training started that afternoon. While the storm raged, she gathered Angelo's crew, the chef, the accountant, the driver. You are loyal, she said, but you are loud. She did not teach them to fight. She taught them to see. Stop looking at faces. Look at hands. Look at the veins on the wrist. When a man is about to lie, the blood pulls. Look at their shoes. Are they new? Are they worn? Are the scuffs from work or from a fight when we go into a room? I do not want you looking for the man with the gun. I want you to find the nearest exit, the fire extinguisher, the weakest civilian. Your job is not to win the fight. It is to get the civilians out before the fight ever starts. They listened. She was not a boss's woman. She was a professional. Just then, Silvio's phone buzzed with an alert. He paled. Boss, it is all over the port feeds. He turned the screen. It was a video, dark and grainy. It showed a woman who looked exactly like Jessa in a diner. She was screaming at an elderly customer, then shoving him hard. He fell. It was a brutal, ugly clip. It was a deep fake. Cinder, Angelo snarled. No, Jessa said, watching the metadata. The upload source is too clean. This is Kepler. He's painting me as an unstable mother before the custody hearing. Before Jessa could even panic, Angelo was on his phone. He did not shout. He gave 3 precise orders. Get the original footage from the moonwave. Send it to every news desk and every port blogger on our list. I want the real clip, the one from the night of the attack. Running next to this fake. I want them side by side in 1 hour. And find the customer in that video. I want to know who he is. Within 30 minutes, the narrative was broken. The port community, who respected the real Jessa, saw the fake for what it was. They rallied. The tension broke. The immediate threat passed. Angelo went to the shelter's kitchenette, a relic from the 50s, and lit a propane stove. He had brought supplies. He started cooking, filling the concrete room with the rich, warm smell of garlic, cumin, and stewing beef. He made ropa vieja. He served it on paper plates, a massive portion for Milo, who was watching a movie on Elena's tablet. Milo ate, his eyes wide. Wow, Milo said, his mouth full. This is better than Mom's tacos. Jessa nudged him. Hey, it is okay. Angelo smiled, a real, unguarded smile. Tacos are hard. He turned to Milo. You play soccer. I am a forward, Milo said proudly. We have the school tournament next month. I will be there, Angelo said. It was not a promise. It was a statement of fact. Later, Milo was asleep, curled up with Elena in a corner. The generator hummed. The storm screamed. Jessa and Angelo sat in the near dark, nursing mugs of instant coffee. You're good at that, Jessa said quietly. The protection, the networks, calling in the chits. It is just control, he said, staring into his cup. Different from Kepler's, but it is control. It is what I do. There is a line, Jessa said, between protecting someone and just owning them, caging them. I know, he said. I walk it every day. The lights in the shelter flickered. The generator sputtered, caught and then normalized. But in the brief flash of the emergency lights, she saw the scar, a pale, jagged line across the back of his right hand, near the knuckles. Before she could think, her fingers moved. She lightly brushed the scar, a simple, questioning touch. He did not pull away. His skin was warm. Marco, he said, his voice rough. The day I pulled his file from the port office, the clerk did not want to give it to me. She did not pull her hand back. He did not move his... They just sat there. The storm, the server, the guns, it all faded. They were just two people, in a basement, who understood what it meant to fight for the truth. They were not Mafia and Waitress. They were parents, defined by the things they were trying to hold safe. A sharp, electronic bleep cut through the moment. It was not her laptop. It was the server. A message had appeared on its internal command line, a protocol that should have been impossible to access from outside, a single line of text. Private meeting, Green City 2040. Tonight, floor 47, Sky Conservatory. Jessa looked at Angelo. It is a trap, or, Angelo said, his eyes hard and alive. It is an invitation to the stage. The concrete floor hummed, every gust of Hurricane Lysander, now a full-throated monster, felt like a giant fist pressing against the building. The generator in the next room was a steady, metallic heartbeat beneath the shriek of the wind. Jessa had settled Milo in a smaller, drier storage room with Elena, piling old blankets to make a nest. He was asleep, oblivious, his small hand clutching the book he wanted her to read. She watched him for a moment, that fierce, protective ache in her chest, and then she closed the door quietly, leaving him in the care of the rescue swimmer. She returned to the main shelter. Angelo was standing by the server rack, the green and amber lights of the machine casting a sickly glow on his face. The air was thick, heavy with the smell of ozone from the generator, damp concrete, and the lingering, rich spices of the ropa vieja. They did not speak. The storm was too loud for easy conversation, and the message on the server, floor 47, was a problem that had no easy words. She walked over to the laptop, not to him, and began to run a trace analysis, trying to find the origin of the message, but she was aware of him, of the space he occupied. He was too close, yet he had not moved. She could hear his breathing, a slow, steady counter-rhythm to the generator. Her fingers, usually so precise, fumbled on the keys. She was tired. The adrenaline from the chase had worn off, leaving a deep, cellular exhaustion. Are you ever tired? His voice was so low she almost missed it, but it cut through the noise. She stopped typing. Tired of what? Of being strong, he said. He had turned, and he was watching her, his eyes dark in the flashing emergency light, of being the only one holding the bar in place. She looked at her own hands, at the calluses, the small cuts. Yes, she said. The admission was a small, sharp object in her throat. But no one can be strong for you. You just are until you are not. Or, he said, you let someone else take the weight for a minute. That is not how it works for me. It could, he said. He moved his hand. It was an impossibly slow, deliberate motion. He raised it, palm open, and held it in the air between them. It was not a reach. It was an offer, a question. He was giving her every second she needed to pull back, to raise a wall, to snap a word that would put him back in his place. Jessa did not move. She did not flinch. She just watched his hand. And then she held her ground, a different kind of bravery, and did not retreat. His fingers, which she knew could be brutal, touched her cheek. The contact was electric, but not with a shock. It was with warmth. His thumb was calloused, rough, and he traced the line of her cheekbone, a simple, grounding touch that asked for nothing. It did not possess. It simply felt. She let out a breath she had been holding for, perhaps, 10 years. He leaned in, his eyes on hers, still asking. She met his gaze. This was not a boss. This was not a client. This was the man who had rolled up his sleeves in the cold room, the man who had promised to watch her son play soccer. She closed her eyes. The first kiss was not a collision. It was a landing. It was slow and warm, and tasted of the salt that was in the very air of the shelter. It was tentative, then firm. It was a discovery of pressure and heat, his mouth gentle against hers, a quiet, profound relief. The world outside, the wind, the screaming rain, all of it dissolved, becoming a dull roar, a curtain drawn around the two of them. He pulled back an inch. They were breathing the same air. "Jessa," he whispered, and it was a statement, not a question. She did not answer with words. She slid her hand from the laptop, not to his, but to his chest, feeling the solid, steady beat of his heart through his shirt. It was real. This time, when he kissed her, it was deeper. The arm that had been at his side went around her, his hand splaying on the small of her back, pulling her in. It was not a cage. It was an anchor. His coat, the one he had given her in the cave, was still on her shoulders. He slid it off, his fingers brushing her neck, and let it fall to the chair. Her hands went from his chest to his shoulders, gripping the material of his shirt, her fingers interlaced behind his neck, and she felt the answering pressure as he held her, his body a solid wall against the chaos. This was not the desperate, frantic scrabbling of a stolen moment. It was deliberate. Every touch, every shift of weight was a question and a consent. The air was charged, but not with violence. It was with a desperate, unspoken need to be seen, to be held by someone who understood the weight. Her back arched as he tilted his head, his lips moving from her mouth to her jaw, his breath warm against her skin. A tremor ran through her, not of fear, but of finally letting go. The storm inside her chest, the one she lived with every day, found a quiet, steady center in the storm now in his arms. After, there was no rush. There was only the sound of two people breathing, their heart rates slowly returning to normal. Jessa rested her forehead against his chest. Her eyes closed. She was not crying. She was, for the first time, simply still. She felt the light rumble of his chest as he spoke. "I did not." She looked up, a small, tired smile on her face. "Do not," she said, her voice a little rough. "Do not say anything. Do not promise me anything except one." His eyes held hers. "Just be there on time," she said. A slow smile touched his own lips. "I will be there." The moment was perfect, and so it had to break. A phone vibrated on the steel desk, a harsh, angry sound. It was not hers. It was Angelo's, the one he used for business. He did not release her, but held her with one arm as he reached for it. He looked at the screen, and his face hardened, the brief peace gone, the steel returning. "It is my lawyer," he said, "the one handling the case for your mom's debt. What is it?" "He just got a message from the court," Angelo said, his voice flat and cold. "They are moving up the hearing, Kepler's influence. It is not next week. It is tomorrow, 8 in the morning. Jessa's blood went cold. Tomorrow. She pulled away, and this time, he let her go. She picked his coat up from the chair. He took it, his eyes never leaving her face. They stood there, the space between them filled once more with the threats of the world. But something was different. They were not alone in the dark. Angelo reached out, not for her, but for her hand. He squeezed it. his grip hard and sure. This new, fragile thing between them was not a place to hide. It was a reason to fight. The adrenaline from the kiss was gone, replaced by the cold, sharp focus of the hearing. The message on the server was no longer just a taunt. It was a timetable. "Floor 47, Moss Sky Conservatory," Jessa said, her fingers flying across the laptop. "It is a trap, but it is also an infrastructure." She was not just looking at the invitation's text. She was analyzing the digital file itself, the metadata, the faint, layered watermark embedded in the code. He's arrogant. The watermark is not just a logo, it is a map. Angelo leaned closer. A map of what? His internal fiber optic network, Jessa said, her voice dropping. The map on her screen resolved into a schematic of downtown Miami. A thick, proprietary data line ran from the Kepler Dominion Tower directly to one other building, the District Family Court. He's not just sending them a recommendation. Angelo. He's hardwired into the court's servers. He can plant, delete, or alter anything. That deepfake video. He can make it the official record. "So we go," Angelo said, his voice hard. "We take the chef. We take the driver. We cut the wire. We cut him." "No," Jessa said, shutting the laptop. "You cut him. He becomes a martyr. You kill a man. You are a monster, but you expose him. You are a hero. We do not need muscle for this. We need light. We need an audience." She picked up her burner phone and dialed a number she had not used in 5 years. "I need," she said, her voice low and fast, "to speak to Anya. This is Jessa. Tell her it is about the Sunline Ledger. Tell her I have a story that will burn down a skyscraper." While they waited for the return call, Jessa dove back into the server. The corruption went deeper than she could have imagined. It was not just about land. "This is how he does it," she whispered, pointing to the screen. "He uses green credits as a weapon. He lobbies the city to demand a new, impossible emissions standard for banks. If they do not comply, they cannot fund projects in Miami. Then, he sells them his own carbon offsets at a premium. He's extorting the entire financial district. And this," she scrolled, "is the list of politicians who voted for his standards and the environmental honors and campaign donations they received from him. 2 weeks later." A separate, encrypted text came to Angelo's secure phone. He read it, his face grim. "A contact, inside the Harbor Light Bureau, one of the clean ones. He confirms it. Gabe De Niro's legal fees are being paid in full by a Kepler satellite fund. The petition for Milo. It is 100% Kepler's move." Jessa did not flinch, did not look up from the server. She would not let them see her break. Instead, she focused, her mind turning back to the problem of access, the Sky Conservatory. "We cannot just walk in," she said, her voice all business. "The place will be locked down for the storm, for the meeting. The elevators will require executive-level clearance. We need an exploit." She went back to the footage they had captured during the airboat chase, the brief 2-second clip from the drone before she had blinded it. She zoomed in, frame by frame. On the reflection in the marina office window, a face, a woman looking stressed, talking into a phone. "Who is she?" Angelo asked. "She is our way in," Jessa said. She took a screenshot and ran it through a facial recognition search linked to Kepler's public employee database. Ria Solano, head of data security. She was in the marina office when she should have been in the tower. She is running the data end of this operation. The plan formed, sharp and dangerous. "The meeting is on floor 47, Jessa said. "The Sky Conservatory. It is a 3-story indoor rainforest. It has its own ecosystem. It needs maintenance, even in a hurricane." "Plant technicians," Angelo said, a slow, cold smile spreading. "They sent an unscheduled inspection for my turbines. We will return the favor for their trees." The rest of it fell into place. Jessa and Angelo would go in as a 2-person arboreal technical team, using Ria Solano's credentials, which Jessa was already working to clone. Angelo's team, the chef, the accountant, and the driver would not go in. They would wait in the storm sewer access below the building, their job not to fight, but to secure the escape route. And Anya, The reporter from the non-profit Sunline Ledger had called back. She was in. She would park a mobile broadcast van 2 blocks away, ready to receive a direct hardline feed from Jessa's laptop. It was time. Elena was taking Milo to the deepest, most secure part of the shelter, telling him they were going camping indoors. Jessa and Angelo stood by the steel door leading out into the storm-washed alley. The wind was a solid wall of sound. "Jessa," Angelo said, his voice low, "if this goes wrong, if only one of us can get out." "I know," she said, her voice fierce, cutting him off. "If one of us is caught, the other one gets out. The other one gets Milo, and they get on a boat, and they do not look back. They go." It was not a promise. It was an oath, heavier than any vow. He nodded, understanding. He reached into his pocket. He was not wearing a suit, just dark work clothes, but he still had the small, civilized things he carried. He pressed something into her hand. It was a small, delicate chain. On it was a tiny, perfectly carved piece of red coral, the same shape as the logo on his card. "My grandfather gave this to my grandmother," he said. He said it was so she would always remember the way home, back from the sea. Jessa looked at the charm, small and hard and real in her palm. Her home had never been a place. It had been a person. She fumbled with the clasp, and Angelo, his fingers steady, took it from her and fastened it around her neck. The metal was cool against her skin. "My home," she said, her voice thick. "Has someone to call now." She tucked the charm under her shirt, a hidden piece of warmth. The eye of the storm was passing. The wind, which had been a constant scream, was now shifting, groaning, as the back wall of the hurricane prepared to hit the city. The pressure dropped. The city went dark. "It is time," Jessa said, pulling up the hood of her rain slicker. "The clean people are about to do their dirtiest work. Let's go." They stepped out into the raging dark. They were not going in for revenge. They were going in for Milo, for the truth, and they would be, as she had demanded, on time. To get to the Kepler Tower, they had to cross the city, and the city was not dead. The back wall of the hurricane was minutes away, but in the eerie calm of the eye, little Havana was defiantly alive. The power was out, but the people were not. They had dragged generators into the street for a shelter festival, a block party against the storm. A DJ was set up on a bodega roof, blasting salsa, the sound echoing off the boarded-up buildings. Neon glow sticks and smoke from barbecue pits cut through the humid, dark air. It was the perfect cover. They moved through the crowd, wearing the cheap half-masks people were handing out. Jessa and Angelo, just 2 more faces in a sea of survivors. But algorithms do not rest. A man, built low and wide like a fire hydrant, was not dancing. He was watching, his eyes scanning, his phone in his hand. He was a bounty hunter, a new breed who scrolled dark feed bounties. He saw Jessa's face, matched it to the photo on his screen, and his eyes lit up. He moved to grab her arm, and he was expecting a waitress, a civilian. He was not expecting her to feel the shift in his weight, the subtle tension in his shoulder. Jessa did not stop or turn. She simply let her back legs sweep. A soft-footed crossing motion that caught his ankle just as he lunged. His own momentum, combined with the slick pavement, did the work. He went down, not with a crash, but with a clumsy, windmilling fall, landing hard on his back. Jessa never broke her stride. He was left staring at the sky, his phone skittering as the crowd swallowed her. They were almost clear, near the edge of the party, when more security, Kepler's private men dressed as Cinder goons, appeared at the end of the street, checking faces. They were trapped. Angelo did the last thing Jessa expected. He did not fight, he diverted. He saw the DJ on the roof, saw the microphone. He grabbed a box of emergency supplies water, batteries from a nearby table, and he climbed onto the small, makeshift stage. "Hey," he yelled into the mic. The music, the crowd, went quiet. "My name is Angelo," he said, his voice amplified, warm and real. "My restaurant is flooded, but my dry storage is not. I am donating everything in it to the Community Relief Fund." The crowd, who had seen his picture and heard the whispers, was silent. Then, one old woman in the front row started to clap. "Coral Crown," she yelled. "He's good. He's port." The entire block erupted in cheers. Angelo had taken their algorithm of fear, the one that labeled him Mafia, and broken it with a single, genuine act in the chaos of the cheering, under the cover of a sudden, undeniable wave of goodwill. He motioned to Jessa. "Go." They slipped past the confused guards, who were now watching the man on the stage. Rhea Solano, in her sterile, high-tech office, saw the breach. Her system, which was tracking Jessa's burner phone, had lit up. She saw Jessa bypass the perimeter. She acted instantly. With a few keystrokes, she activated her countermeasure. A new deep fake hit the web. This one was not of Jessa. It was of Angelo. It was audio. His voice, synthesized perfectly. "You take that kid away. I will burn that courthouse to the ground." The social media feeds exploded. The Sunline Ledger van, parked 2 blocks away, received the feed. Anya, the reporter, called Jessa. "I have a problem. This audio just dropped. It makes him look like a terrorist. I cannot run your feed until I can verify this is fake. I need 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Jessa's blood ran cold. The hearing was at 8 in the morning. They were inside the tower, using the cloned key card. Jessa sprinted to the server room for the Sky Conservatory's environmental systems. She ripped open the panel. She was right. A massive data payload was being actively uploaded. She watched in horror as the progress bar hit 80%. "He's not waiting for the hearing," she whispered. "He's flagging Milo's file right now. High-risk environment. Parental instability. He's prejudging the case. In 10 minutes, it will be permanent." She did not have time to hack it. She had to stop it. She found the main fiber optic line. She cut it. She pulled the live wire and jammed it into her own custom-built decoder, a small black box, the data stream, seeking a path, rerouted to her laptop. A face appeared on her screen. Orion Kepler. He was on a private call, and she had just hijacked it. He looked surprised, then smiled, a thin, bloodless expression. "You can win a night, Miss Quinn," he said, his voice calm, "but you cannot win the city. I am the city." "Your guards are here," Jessa said, looking past the camera. Kepler's smile vanished. He had not known. The doors to the server room burst open. 2 guards, real ones, in Kepler Dominion tactical gear. Angelo did not hesitate. He grabbed an electric maintenance scooter, a 3-wheeled flatbed used for carrying bags of fertilizer. He gunned the silent motor. "Jessa, now." He snagged her by the waist, pulling her onto the scooter with him. They shot out of the server room and onto a massive, terrifying glass bridge that connected the conservatory's 2 wings. Through the jungle of indoor trees, they could see the dark city below, glittering like a wet jewel lashed by rain. "He's on the bridge," a guard yelled. They raced across the glass, the scooter's tires whining. Jessa held on, clutching her laptop, the data still streaming. They hit the far side and skidded, jumping off the scooter. A maintenance elevator. Jessa hit the button. Footsteps pounded behind them. It was not just the guards. It was the Cinder Gang, here as Kepler's muscle, running to cut them off. The elevator door opened. They jumped inside. The doors slid shut. The thick steel ceiling just as the first goon reached it, his fist hammering uselessly on the metal. Jessa and Angelo were alone in the small, descending box, breathing hard. Their hearts were pounding. One single frantic rhythm. The elevator stopped. "This is not the lobby," Jessa said. "No," Angelo said. "It is floor 47. The doors opened. They were not in the conservatory. They were in a cold, white, sterile access corridor. And waiting for them was Rhea Solano, flanked by 4 of Kepler's top-tier private security. It was a perfect trap. Jessa's hand went for the laptop. Angelo put his hand on her arm. He stepped in front of her. He was not tensed. He was relaxed. He looked at Rhea, and he smiled. "Took you long enough," he said. He put his hands up, palms out, and was immediately seized by the guards. He did not fight. As they pushed him to his knees, he looked back at Jessa, who was frozen in horror. He winked. "Pull the curtain," he said. Rhea Solano, focused on the prize, pointed at him. "Get him. The woman is irrelevant. As the guards swarmed Angelo, Jessa, now irrelevant, clutching the laptop full of live data, melted back into a grove of ornamental bamboo. She was a ghost. Angelo had just bought her the stage. The 8 o'clock morning light was a sick, watery gray. The hurricane had passed, leaving Miami a broken, sodden wreck. The family courthouse was on generator power, the air inside thick with humidity and the smell of wet drywall. Water dripped from a buckled ceiling tile into a plastic trash can. Jessa was already there. She wore a dark blue maintenance jumpsuit, her hair tucked under a baseball cap. She pushed a cleaning cart, its wheels squeaking down the corridor. Tucked beneath the mop bucket was the Sunline Ledger's portable broadcast antenna. The hearing was a formality of malice. Gabe De Niro, looking pale and confused, sat with a lawyer in a suit so sharp it looked like it could cut. The judge, a man who had received a community stewardship award from a Kepler-funded scholarship, looked impatient. Miles away, on the rooftop of the Kepler Data Center, Ria Solano watched her own screen. She was initiating the containment protocol. A hatch slid open, and a swarm of small, black drones, each the size of a dinner plate, rose into the morning air. They were not surveillance. They were payloads. Small, shaped charges designed to destroy data, or if necessary, a broadcast van. In the street below the data center, Angelo's team, now wearing Stolen City cleanup vests, looked up. "Those are not checking the power lines," the chef said, his voice flat. Silvio, the accountant, was sweating, but he had the kit Angelo had provided. He pulled out a pair of 4-foot-long, rubber-insulated tongs. The driver held a stack of wet kitchen towels. "They are landing on the relays," Silvio whispered, his voice shaking. "We have to disarm them before they network." "Okay," the chef said. "All business. Silvio, you count, I grab, driver, you wrap." Silvio began to count, his panic giving way to a frantic, familiar rhythm he used for inventory. "Uno, dos, tres." He was counting on the salsa beat. Back in the courtroom, Gabe's lawyer stood up. "Your Honor, we have new evidence. Audio of the threat made by Miss Quinn's known associate, Mr. Trevisani, just last night." He played the deep fake. Angelo's synthesized voice filled the room, cold and threatening. "Burn that courthouse to the ground." The judge went rigid. "This is deeply disturbing." Jessa, who had been checking the courtroom's floor connection panel, glanced toward the main television monitor. Now, she synced her transmitter wirelessly to the AV system. The screen showing the evidence file flickered, dissolved into static, and then reappeared with the Sunline Ledger's emblem. "We interrupt this feed," came Anya's voice steady, precise for a live report on the Kepler Dominion's Green City initiative. The judge slammed his gavel. "What is this? Turn that off." But the bailiff was jabbing helplessly at a remote that no longer responded. "This is not a development project," Anya went on. "It is a criminal enterprise." Data from Jessa's stream filled the display, the tainted accounts, the hidden transfers, the flow of money from the Seagull Wing Foundation to Harbor Light operatives, and to the judge's own scholarship fund. Gabe's attorney was struck silent. The judge's face had gone the color of damp paper. "And most recently," Anya said, "Kepler's team has been actively manipulating a family court case to silence a witness." On the screen, a new file appeared, Milo_Dinero_custody, and beside it, the system log. File modified, 07:59 a.m. User R. Solano. The courtroom erupted. The live stream, now being fed to every major news site, went viral. Phones were vibrating in every pocket. The Harbor Light Bureau, in a panic, was forced to dispatch its real internal affairs team to protect the integrity of the courthouse. Anya, as Jessa had instructed, cut the feed. The screen flashed, not to static, but to a new image, a live video, coming from a hidden camera Jessa had left in the Sky Conservatory. It was Angelo. He was on his knees, hands bound. He was not panicked. He was not beaten. He looked directly into the camera, his gaze calm, and he waited. Jessa pushed her cart forward. She pulled off her cap, her hair tumbling down. "My name is Jessa Quinn," she said. her voice clear and carrying, not just in the room, but to the dozens of phones now recording her. Gabe looked at her, his expression uncomprehending. "I am Milo's mother," Jessa said, walking to the center of the room. She did not look at the judge. She looked at Gabe. "This was never about you. Gabe, this was about a man, Orion Kepler, who is so rich he thinks he can buy anything. He tried to buy the city. He tried to buy the law. And he tried to use my son to buy my silence." She turned to the judge. "I am not for sale. And my son is not leverage. I am asking the court to do its job, to protect my child." The judge, his career and reputation dissolving in real time, was sweating. He was trapped. He opened his mouth to speak. A high-pitched whistle, louder than the wind, cut the air. One drone, the chef had missed one. It smashed through the storm-damaged window, its small jets flaring. It was not aimed at the judge. It was aimed at Jessa. There was no time to think. Jessa grabbed a large, clear panel of polycarbonate, part of a temporary storm barrier erected in the hallway, and lunged. She did not shield herself. She shoved the panel in front of the witness stand, tackling Gabe's lawyer and a paralegal to the floor. "Get down!" The drone hit the panel, and the world exploded in a bright, concussive flash. The noise was deafening. Glass shattered, the lights went out, plunging the room into darkness, lit only by the red glow of the exit signs. When the smoke cleared, Jessa was on the ground. The polycarbonate sheet cracked but intact. No one was hurt. The live stream had caught it all. The judge, trembling, his voice a reedy, thin whisper, slammed his gavel. "Order, order. This hearing is suspended indefinitely. All previous custody arrangements remain in effect. This court is referring this entire matter to the Federal Commission on Judicial Integrity, and I am granting an emergency. Permanent order of protection for Jessa Quinn and Milo Quinn." Jessa got to her feet, her ears ringing. Outside, sirens wailed the real Harbor Light agents. She had won. The public, the law, was on her side. Milo was safe, but as she looked at the television screen, which had finally gone black, the victory felt cold. Kepler had lost the public battle, but in the dark, in his glass tower, he still had the king. He still had Angelo. The storm was pulling back, its energy spent, leaving the city in a state of stunned, dripping silence. That night, Jessa climbed. She used a service ladder, scaling the side of the Kepler tower, the wind still strong enough to make her press flat against the steel. Below her, the Sky Conservatory was a dark jungle of glass. She found him on the main observation deck, inside his private greenhouse, a sterile room filled with bioluminescent algae. Orion Kepler was standing in the center, wearing a white suit, looking like a high priest. He was not afraid. He was admiring the view. "You can keep your son, Miss Quinn," Kepler said, his voice amplified by the room's acoustics. He did not turn. "But I keep the city." Jessa stepped out of the shadows. Across the room, Angelo was tied to a steel chair. He was bruised, but his eyes were clear, and he was watching her. "How do you save a city?" Jessa said, her voice raw. "If you have to start with a lie, the lies are the foundation. My dear, they are the necessary sacrifices for a clean future." "Like Marco Trevisani?" Jessa asked. Kepler finally turned. "Who?" "Angelo's brother," she said, "the crane operator." "A necessary loss," Kepler said, waving his hand. "A tragedy, but it sped up the revitalization by a year." "You are a liar," Angelo said, his voice a low growl. "I am," Kepler smiled, "but I am the one with the microphone." "No," Jessa said, holding up her small, hard-line transmitter. "I am." She hit play. It was not a recording of her. It was a recording from the server. Audio files Kepler thought were deleted, his own voice, boasting to an investor. "We had to teach the port unions a lesson. A little unfortunate accident with the crane was all it took. Cleared the way for the new zoning." Angelo closed his eyes. The confirmation of physical blow. In the corner, Ria Solano, who had been standing watch, flinched. This was not a data point. This was murder. Jessa looked at her, at the one person in the room who still had a choice. "When your clean world is built on blood, Ria," Jessa said, "it is not clean anymore. It is just a well-lit grave." Kepler's face, for the first time, was not calm. It was a mask of pure fury. "Guards!" he screamed. The guards lunged. But Angelo was already moving. He was not a brawler, he was a force of nature. He threw his entire weight, chair and all, sideways, shattering the glass wall of the algae tank. He did not attack the guards. He blocked their path to Jessa. The fight was in a confined space, all glass and steel. One guard came at Jessa. She did not panic. She saw the tools. She grabbed a decorative hanging basket, a steel wire holding a heavy ball of moss. She swung it, using the man's own momentum, and looped the wire, pulling it tight. It was a non-lethal chokehold, a simple application of leverage. He went down without a sound. At the same moment, the Sunline ledger feed, which had been dark, came back to life. Anya had bridged the signal. On the massive LED screen on the outside of the Kepler Tower, the one that usually showed ads for green energy, Orion Kepler's face appeared, and his voice, the one from the recording, boomed out over the dark, wet city, confessing to the entire world. He was too proud, too arrogant, and he thought the storm would keep everyone inside. He had forgotten in Miami. Everyone watches the storm. The doors to the conservatory burst open. It was not Kepler's men. It was the Harbor Light team, the real one. The Internal Affairs Unit, their faces grim, guns raised. Ria Solano did not run. She stepped forward, her hands up. "The system keys," she said, her voice shaking but firm. "R749 Alpha." She had given them everything. Kepler just stood there, watching his own face on the city-size screen. He was cuffed, in his white suit, in the middle of his perfect, clean world, in the howling wind. Angelo, free from his bonds, stood by the broken glass railing, breathing hard, his knuckles bloody. Jessa walked over to him. The city spread out before them, damaged but alive. There were no fireworks. There were no swelling strings. There was only the quiet, profound relief of survival. He turned to her, and she stepped into his arms, burying her face in his chest. He held her, his arms a steel anchor, and they just stood there. Two people who had made it through the storm, their hearts finally beating in the same steady rhythm. Weeks later, the city was healing. The Coral Crown, as a name, was dissolved in its place. Angelo founded the Seabright Co-op, a port and restaurant collective owned by its workers. He was a partner, not a boss. Jessa Quinn did not go back to the diner. She accepted a new position, Director of Community Security for the co-op. No guns, just a lot of classes, teaching people how to read the world, how to protect each other. Gabe De Niro entered a treatment program. He signed a joint custody agreement. He was finally, Jessa thought, becoming a father. At Milo's first tournament, he scored a goal. He immediately looked up at the stands, his face bright. He was not looking for one parent. He was looking for two, and they were both there, Angelo and Jessa standing side by side. The Harbor Light Bureau began a massive investigation into political and corporate corruption, and the Sunline Ledger won a local journalism award for their series, Dirty Green. On a warm, clear night, the Moonwave Diner reopened, cleaner, brighter. Jessa stood behind the counter, not as a waitress, but as its new owner. She took the small, red coral charm from her neck and hung it on the corner of a simple, framed picture by the register. It was a list, in her handwriting, titled The Rules. 1. Protect first. 2. Always tell the truth. 3. Be on time. Angelo came up behind her, the smell of his ropa vieja, now the diner's special, filling the air. He read the sign, then looked at the charm. "I am not perfect," he whispered, his hand finding hers, "but I am on time." Jessa leaned back against him, a real, easy smile on her face. "That is enough." The door opened, and a crowd of dock workers, families, and even the chef, the driver, and the accountant piled in, laughing, outside. The ocean was calm after the storm. It was not flat, but it was, finally, navigable, and they would sail it together. Thank you so much for listening to our story. We would love to know where you are listening from, so drop a comment below and share your thoughts. Please subscribe to our channel, Mafia Boss Stories, like this video. And if you want to support us further, hit that hype button so this story can be heard by even more people.